I was walking down Tejon Street on my way back to the office at the Olympic Committee, and I saw the hot dog stand right outside of the City Hall, and I said, you know what, I'm hungry. I want a Chicago dog today. And that's when my cell phone rang. Hello, this is John, you're hot. Yes, yeah, yes, you're who? Okay, yes, yeah. I remember you. We were on the train at Washington Dulles Airport. Yes, you're the United gate agent. Gotcha. Yeah, yeah. I was in the Washington Post. Yeah, And yeah, It's a Miracle. Yes, I was on that show too. Yes, and you said okay. Oh, really? Wow. You mean that the story we talked about, I shared with you, inspired you? It saved your life? Have you ever been in a moment or in a time where you actually inspired someone? Or that you've been called in such a manner through an email or text message that what you did, unbeknownst to you, inspired them. That is the power of inspiration. I really believe that inspiration leads to motivation. Motivation in turn causes action. Action then leads to results, and results do a couple of things for us. It either re-inspires us or it allows someone else that's watching the process to catch the vision. Now, I really was not a fan of the word inspiration. It was a word to me that was kind of a throwaway word or a charitable word. And really, in my line of who I am and what I was at that point in time, it really was kind of a word of suppression or demeaning to me. And I'll tell you why. I used to run track and field for the Arkansas Razorbacks, the Hogs, go Hogs, Upig Suey. And when I was running track and I did some type of an athletic feat or had one of the All-American honors bestowed, one of the sports writers would write about me on the sports page. And then a few years later, I had an accident which resulted in the amputation of my left leg. And I used sports to heal as a process to the rehabilitation. And I used swimming as a modality to get back to a healthy and active lifestyle. And I wound up looking up somehow and making the Paralympic swim team, and later on the track and field team, and went up and won a silver medal over in Sydney, Australia in the Paralympic Games. But I said, well, okay, you can applaud there, thanks. But when I was written about on those pages at that time, it was not by a sports person. It was by someone who was covering a human interest story. So instead of being written about on the sports pages, I found myself being the inspirational story. That sucked. And I just didn't get it, so because I just didn't like being the inspirational guy. I want to be on the sports page, not the human interest page. In fact, I remember one time my first kind of professional speaking engagement was with a company called the American Plastics Council. They're now the American Chemistry Council, and they had this mantra called "Plastics Makes It Possible." And as a spokesperson for the company, they would train me to do all this bridging and blocking and things to be on television with these reporters and talk about the power of plastics in my prosthetic leg. And I remember this one time I was in New York City on the Paula Zahn show. Anybody remember Paula Zahn? Yeah. Fiery blonde who just ripped you up and down, and shock journalism was awesome. And I'm in the green room trying to remember my lines, and I remember, okay, the plastics makes it possible, I'm going to do these things. And I see George Stephanopoulos get on the show before me, And she is just slashing him left and right. Now, as I'm watching this process, I'm getting terrified. I'm going on next, and I am just literally shaking because she's gonna just do the same thing to me. She's gonna humiliate me on national TV, and I've told all my friends to watch. So I come out, and Paula is very graceful, and she says, "Hello, John, welcome to the show. Come on and sit down." That's the setup. And I go and I sit down in the seat next to her, and I am so nervous. I am just shaking. "Yeah, nice to meet you, Miss Son." "Oh, call me Paula." She set me up, oh my gosh. And as I sit there shaking like a leaf, she tosses me a softball question. And she says, "John, why are you here today?" And I just, shaking like a leaf, thinking about George Stephanopoulos on that show, just said, "Plastics makes it possible." And as she ends the show, she says, "I hope you enjoyed our show today, and we want to thank our guest once again, John Register, for being our inspirational story for ending our show." There goes that word again. But my life changed. When I came back from Sydney, Australia, I was in the San Francisco airport waiting for a flight connection to board. And as I was sitting there, I was wearing shorts. And my artificial leg was prominently showing. And as I was sitting there reading that paper, there was a conversation that was happening about, 20 feet away from me, just an earshot. And as I continued to read my little USA Today newspaper, I kept hearing these two kids, about 5 and 7, say to their matriarch, Mom, look, do you see that guy's leg? You see his leg? Do you see his leg? What's wrong with him, Mom? What's wrong with him?" And look, it's a robot man. But I continued to read my paper, trying to tune them out. But something was happening that was going on that was unbeknownst to me that I was starting to hear. I'd never heard this before, and it was these audience members, everybody else in the gate waiting area, were beginning to have outer speak conversations that really should have been inner speak conversations about the two kids, 6 and 5, over in the corner. They're like, I wish they just leave that poor man alone. What about that mom should just get them up and get them out of this. They should give her a what for. It is impolite to stare. They are bothering that poor man who's reading that paper. I said, interesting. And so as I sat there, I noticed that the mom gets up and begins to walk over in my direction. And she stops. And as she stops, she begins to have a conversation with me. This has never happened before. And she says, "Excuse me, sir, my children are fascinated by your artificial leg. Would you please tell them what happened?" I'm blown away. No one has ever approached me in that manner. And as I'm trying to think about what to say, I noticed that the audience that's been having this outer speak conversation, which really should have been inner speak conversation, began to lean in. Like that old E.F. Hutton commercial. And so I began to try to formulate a response and say, what can I tell these kids about my artificial leg? Because I've never been challenged in such manner before. So I said, "Get out of here, little rugrats." I didn't say that. I began to explain to them the whole process of having a limb loss through a freakish hurdling accident where I dislocated my knee. And 5 days later, I went from the 8th fastest hurdler in the country to flat on my back to an amputee. Swam through physical therapy, made the Paralympic team, and then now I came back and I took out my silver medal and I placed it around that little boy's head. And the most miraculous thing happened. As they looked at it and they saw the front and they saw the back, he took it off and he said, "Mom, that's great." And as I got the medal and put it back into my pocket, the mother reached over and she asked me for an autograph. And I did. And then she thanked me for my time, shook the two boys' hands, and poof, off they walked. And as I sat there in that chair, I said, what just happened? I guess me sitting in a chair with my artificial leg prominently showing, somebody was being inspired, unbeknownst to me. And I learned something that day. I actually learned about 3 things about myself. And the first was those 2 kids. Where are they now in their lives? That story happened 14 years ago. So maybe now they are the HR directors, and the next time they see a person that walks in that has a physical impairment, a visual impairment, or comes in a wheelchair, maybe they look at them a little bit different. And maybe it expands a little further than that. The next time a person walks in who is maybe a person of color, sexual orientation, or you fill in the blank, they look at that person a little bit different because their world has been opened up just a little more. And then I started looking at all the people that were in the gate waiting area, because those conversations that were outer speak conversations that should have been inner speak became outer speak one more time, but the conversation was different. The conversation now was, how cool was that? Did you hear that story? Did you see the look on those kids' faces? Man, they got to touch the metal, man. It was a transformation of everybody in that gate waiting area. And it was like something almost out of a scripted movie to see that the power that was just the transformation of what was happening with these 2 kids and this audience. And then I was thinking to myself, how many times did I miss it because I was into myself? How many times because I wanted to be reading my paper or not engaged, that someone wanted to know a little bit more about me, that I was unwilling to reveal myself to cause someone else to grow? And that's the power of inspiration. So so you say your name is Susan? Yeah. That's just amazing. Tell me just, you had, I see, you had a mastectomy. And it was because of that story that's what got you through. And your friend that was with you in the bed beside you, she just couldn't deal with it and she didn't make it. Okay, yeah, I understand you got to go. Okay, all right. Goodbye. Inspiration. We have to ignite the power and the passion that is within the inside of us. We have to begin to navigate the landscape. And then we have to reach for those things which are inside of or outside of our grasp. We have to endeavor to inspire, because inspiration leads to motivation. The motivation in turn causes action, and the action then leads to results. And that is the true power that each and every one of you have and that I learned from myself. Thank you.